Good evening. So, today's been an interesting one. I skipped PSO2 today and got straight into Breath of Fire 2 instead. And I got almost done with it when I did a little bit of research. Well, it wasn't even research. I stumbled across something that I didn't recognize, and I looked it up, and it was basically the first piece of what was supposed to take a long time, and you were supposed to do over the course of the game, that you couldn't do right at the end of it, which is where I was, to get the better ending. So, I'm sitting there, and I'm like, am I gonna suffer what's most likely gonna be the classic RPG 2.5 hour final dungeon just to be disappointed? Or, with my knowledge and a few little tweaks here and there, am I going to get my time's worth out of this game? So I swapped back over to my PC, slotted it back into SNES 9X, played around with a couple of different experience multiplier codes, most of which that were jacked way up for me. Frankly, I lose interest if after the first battle my character is invincible. Like, I want to get through the game quickly, but I don't want to dominate it, you know? Like, I don't want every boss to suddenly become a joke. A little bit of a joke, sure, you know? A little bit of a wow, that was a lot easier this time around. But more so because I was prepared than I just cheated. So I found a patch that when the game was ported to Game Boy Advance, the developers doubled the experience and the money. And I found a patch that put just that in the SNES game. And that went fine for a little bit. But that's when I tried the bigger EXP bursts. And like I said, one after the first fight, my character was level like 37. And the other, it was just straight to 99. And I didn't like that. I didn't like either one of those. Sorry, I've talked about this before, this dry skin above my eye that's driving me insane. More because, like, it doesn't bother me so much as it's not like super itchy, and it only like hurts, kind of burns when I try to do something about it. But my glasses are constantly covered in dry skin, and it's frustrating as all get out. Anyway, it was catching my eye the way it's catching the light just right to cast a bit of a shadow there, and it looked like a more prominent thing than it is. Like, that looks like a bump or something, or like a mole, and that's not what it is. It's just a slightly raised patch of dry skin catching the light just right. Yeah, you can see, there it's gone. There it looks like a mass, but there's nothing really to it. Anyway, oh, right. So basically I gave myself a slight crash course in address editing. To dumb it down simply, thanks to the codes, I'd isolated the two addresses in... Basically, I isolated the 2 points of data that control experience. And there are two kinds. The first one is some way of multiplying it. I don't know how. I don't know exactly what the like scaling of it is, because I don't think it's straight 2x, 4x, that kind of thing. And the other is just basically where the game stores the experience you've gained from enemies you killed until the end of the battle. And the way one of the codes worked was replaced that value with shorthand that signified maximum. So it just granted maximum experience, which I didn't want to do. Which wasn't the one that sent you straight to 99, because it was just maximum experience you could gain from one battle, which was for some reason like it was either 5k or 50k or something like that, which isn't enough to give you 99. But by playing around with the first value and leaving the second one to its own devices, I went from getting like 12 experience from the first monster to like 100 and change. So I basically got to skip a lot of the getting off the ground grinding, which is always the hardest part of an RPG. Just getting on your feet right at the beginning. Or like, it's also helping with bringing any new characters up to speed. But like, it's not making me invincible, because this game, you still need a lot of your defense is going to come, a lot of your attack and defense period is going to come from weapons. Because like the latest boss I did, I was probably like an party average of like 6 or 7, if not a little more, levels higher than I was when I originally did it. And still halfway through the fight, he nearly KO'd my main character. So, and like I had to kind of scramble a little bit. Well, it wasn't that much of a scramble because my agility was high enough that I was moving before him. But this was a slow boss to begin with, and I had 2 of the fastest characters in the game in my party, so they would have gone first anyway. And point being, a boss is still going to push back a little bit, which is what I want. I don't want to just be able to throw on autoplay for every boss. I do want to not have to struggle for hours and hours during the 2 solos party segments, or like, not to mention fast forwarding in general is cutting like an hour of grinding down to like 10 minutes. Because believe it or not, a lot of it's just the black screens that load in and out of battles, and then the fights themselves don't really take that long when you can do them on auto battle. Some of them can drag, and like some boss fights can drag because you're sitting through a bunch of animations. But when you skim over that, and when you skim over loading into a battle and then loading the field back again, it really, really cuts time down. Because when I say loading it back in, it's the animation of fade to black, fade back to, let's say after the fight, fade to black, fade back to the overworld, and then the like transition screen sort of buffer that is not having control of the character yet to finally being able to move. Because of course, with it running in an emulator, it's not taking long to load. even on the original SNES, I imagine, because I've been playing it on my Classic for the most part, and I'm sure that's faster than an SNES, but like not as fast as my PC is probably. Then again, I don't know. Maybe the Classic's faster. I don't know. But my point being, I imagine that you weren't sitting there for much longer on the original hardware, because and honestly, it's these longer transition. You have these longer transition screens to thank for stuff like that, because it starts loading immediately while you're watching this little transition. So, you know, it's like oh, what was the game? There's a very specific example of this that I can't remember, but it's like while watching a cutscene, the game is, since it's literally just playing a video file, or you know, a pre-recorded set of, even when it's in engine, it's a pre-recorded set of things. It can be loading the next area behind it. So it'd be like you'd wait for like 2 to 5 seconds for it to load behind the screen, and then you could skip it. But you couldn't skip it right away, because you would just be stuck on black. And to sort of cover that up, what am I thinking of? It might have been Final Fantasy VII Remake that didn't let you skip right away. I can't remember. Anyway, the biggest point about all this is basically, I want to say I started that around 9, maybe a little earlier. It was after the sun had set good, but that's could be anywhere between 7 and 9. For all I know. But I was able to knock out like a massive chunk of the beginning of the game. Basically, I am now roughly where I was when I stopped the second day I was playing. So basically, I think the first full day. No, I'm past where I stopped the first full day. I can't remember exactly the points where I stopped, but I've condensed, you know, a lot down into a little, just because A, I'm not wandering around as much. B, I realized I had the warp spell, because like the first time I did a lot of walking back and forth to the first town, because I didn't realize the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, I think. One of the earlier characters you get learned warp like 3 levels after finding them. And it was just like, oh, I've been wasting so much time. It's the equivalent of me, like, in the first Breath of Fire, going back and forth through that cave, like, through a very early cave, like 6 more times than I needed to, because I didn't know one of my new characters could walk through forests. Like, knowing that would have saved me like 2 hours probably, if not more. And that's where I was this time, but with the warp spell. I did the same thing in the first game too. I discovered I had it well after. Or when I discovered it, I would have been like, God, I wish I knew I had that like 10 hours ago. the real dilemma and the real test of whether or not I'm committed to this is going to come tomorrow, because according to Amazon, I should be getting my copy of Strikers. So, depending on where I am in Breath of Fire, no, I really want to finish it though. But then again, right now I say that, but I don't have Strikers yet. That could all change the second the UPS truck gets here tomorrow. So we'll see. I do kind of really want to finish it though. Like, I put this much time in it, and I'm so close. Like, I'm pretty sure I can knock out a solid half of the game tomorrow, basically. Seeing as I know where I'm going. Because, like, basically, I'm right before a section where I wasted something like 3 or 4 hours just trying to find the city I was supposed to be going to. Where this time I know exactly where I'm going. I don't have to do any grinding for it. You know, and then again, that part of the game is around the same point. Not far from the point, I mean, where I was stuck the other day grinding with a single character I'd hardly used. I'm using him frequently now because I know I'm gonna have that solo segment, so I should be able to breeze through that as well. You know, just a lot of, even without the rewinding, I'd be saving a lot of time just by knowing where I'm going. And that's not so much a slight at the game, especially when you take it in the context of when it was released. I mean, we're talking about a massive JRPG that came out in '94. So, you know, that's around the same time Final Fantasy VI came out, which is honestly still probably one of the best games out there. And it suffered some of the same "where am I going" syndrome. A little less because of how well it told the first half of that story, but yeah, the further you got in the game, there could have been, especially once you get past the big event. And I won't spoil that for anybody that hasn't played 6, but if you have played 6, you know what I'm talking about. After you pass that, there's a lot of, alright, now what? But anyway, I think that's going to do it for me tonight. It's nice to see I've knocked back up the time on these. Not that I necessarily have a sort of set goal or anything, but like, I have been worried. Well, not so much worried, because I mean, it'd be kind of hypocritical for me to say worried about quality of content when I'm laying in the bed half naked just chatting. But I was worried that I wasn't going to get much out of me, or I was going to start skimming over and missing things because of this. But obviously when there's things to talk about, I still talk. So this has set that kind of fear to rest. Because after some of these that are only like 3 or 4 minutes long, of hello, yes, I did very little today, good night, sleepy. So, I was worried I wasn't doing even like the bare minimum of a journal justice, which is ultimately what this is. But, you know, we're getting close to 20 minutes now, so obviously when I want to talk, I will. When there's things to talk about, I will. And that does set my mind at ease. So, anyway, I'm gonna go to bed now. I will catch you all tomorrow. Come here.